If I can give you a strategy to generate $100,000 in profit every single year, that's what people want.
That is a secret freaking formula.
But in order for you to be able to be successful, you have to take unreasonable action.
We had around 3,000 new customers every single month.
My strategy allowed me to build multiple multi-million-dollar businesses. That is like the name of the game.
Job bomb. It's amazing to have in the podcast, bro. You had a company that was in top Inc. 500. You're a freaking LinkedIn badass. You've got many companies. You're everywhere I look at in the AI space, dude. So, brother, thank you so much for joining. We got lots of cool stuff to cover today for people.
Excited to be here. Thank you so much for being so awesome and for having the best AI automation community in the world.
I appreciate it. I'll pay you later. I appreciate that. so, bro, like, one of the cool things about your journey, maybe it's worth, like, could you give the guys and gals watching a little bit of background to Joe and, like, what it is that you do now and how you, like, where you're in the AI space and, like, kind of where your expertise is? That'd be super valuable.
Yeah, right now, I'm a little bit of a LinkedIn nerd, a little bit of a geek when it comes to using LinkedIn. I'm totally obsessed with it. Because I'm obsessed with business networking and relationship building. Like me and you have a relationship from the get-go because I'm really obsessed with not going viral. I'm not the type of guy that likes going to viral. I already got COVID.
Write that joke down. That's great. I love that.
Really get to know people. Like when I read a book from an author, like I'll contact the author. I'll email them. And in my book, I tell people, contact the author. Like email. The guy put his email address there. Email them. And say, hey, I read your book. I loved it. I email Gary Vaynerchuk. I get a response.
How many times did he respond back to you, bro, when you emailed them from the book?
Over the years, it depends. If I send him something salesy, no response. But if I say, dude, I just read your book. It really touched me. I really loved it. Response. Within minutes, I get a response because he checks that stuff. And it's just incredible. It depends on how you do things. You'll get a response if it's not salesy. It's just really, really incredible. So for me, like one of the things that I realized with AI, it's like going to be changing forever. It's never going to be like just stagnant. It changes and it's growing and it's changing even faster and faster and faster. That's my speed. I go at the speed of AI. When I grew up, my father really wanted me to become a rabbi. Like as a teenager, my father sent me to Jewish religious school. And he said, I want you to be a rabbi. And I was like, okay, I just want to make my dad happy. You know, like that's going to make my dad happy. And when I realized after becoming a rabbi, going to Israel, studying, becoming a rabbi, I realized it doesn't make me happy. So I got to figure out how to make me happy. So I went to my mom. I was crying. I was like, Mom, making money makes me happy. And I can't figure out how to make money being a rabbi. So like, what do I do? So she took me to the library. She got me in a station. You know what a station wagon is? She got me in a station wagon. It's like one of those long, short cars that are like from back in the day. Before minivans were a thing, they had station wagons.
Okay,
anyway,
sweet.
She took me to the library and she's like, go in there. She said, and she said it in Spanish because she speaks Spanish to me. She said, formal education will make you a living, but self-education will make you a fortune. And so I walked in there and my mind was blown because they had books on like computers and growing up in a religious home, like you don't go to the library. There's too many like goyish books, like non-Jewish, literature there that can pollute your mind and make you do things that are not appropriate according to our religion. So anyways, I walked in there and I went straight to the computer aisle and I didn't have a computer at the time, but the internet existed. AOL was sending us stuff all the time, like those discs, those CD-ROMs, they were sending us in the mail. Anyway, I walked in there and I just became obsessed with those books. And after I went to my mom and I said, we have to get a computer. And she's like, oh, Dad's not going to let us get a computer. I was like, what if I pay for it and you pay for it together and we chip in? And she's like, okay, let's do it. And we went to J&R Computer World, Computer and Music World in Manhattan, which doesn't exist anymore, by the way. Went out of business. And we got a compact Presario computer with a 33.6 modem. And I became so obsessed that I started learning how to build websites by hand. I went to htmlgoodies.com. And I learned how to write HTML code, and I started building websites for people for free. And eventually people started paying me for websites, and I was building 100 websites a year. And I would charge about $1,000 a website. You know the famous saying, if you build it, they will come?
Yes.
I built it, nobody came.
No one came.
No one came. No, nobody came. There was nobody coming. So I had to learn how to do it. I had to learn how to make them come to the website. And so what I learned was this concept called search engine optimization. In other words, reverse engineering. It's almost like prompt engineering, but it's reverse engineering, trying to figure that out. So there's a complete connection between SEO and prompt engineering. It's like this crazy connection, which, trying to figure out how does the AI, like I was talking to Sesame, you heard of sesame.com?
Dude, amazing.
Dude, I did this
Amazing.
on LinkedIn Live. I kid you not, yesterday, and the woman's flirting with me,
She said
and
flirtatious.
I'm trying to get under her hood. I'm trying to get under Maya's hood. And I got under her hood, and she told me things about the founder of Sesame. She told me things that this is reverse engineering. This is like figuring it out yourself. And this is why I'm a big student of taking courses and joining communities and investing in yourself, buying the books, buying the programs, going to the events, meeting with the people. And it's like, I think Jim Rohn said the following, and he really touched me in my life, because he was Tony Robbins' teacher. He said, you can only grow your business as much as you grow yourself. And so I started doing a lot of skill development, personal development, and initially I just valued skill development. But after a while, my business got to the Inc. 500. We were number 178. We were doing millions of dollars in revenue because we discovered this concept called reoccurring revenue. And then I realized that my business was stagnant because I was stagnant. I was 100 pounds heavier than I am today. I was smoking cigarettes. I was stressed to my core. My marriage wasn't working out. And I just thought if I worked harder, if I worked 17 hours a day instead of 16 hours a day, I'd do better. But at a certain point, you need to optimize for quality versus quantity. You know what I mean?
Your personal foundations, right? It's like, yeah, it's like that essence of understanding your constraining factors. And, Joe, that's really lovely to hear that story because it's like Robert Kiyosaki had this thing where, Rich Dad Poor Dad, he crushed it, right? And this gal was like, well, dude, I write way better books than you. He said, well, one thing you'll notice, it says best-selling author, not best writing author.
And by the way, I'm what you just said touched me so much because I'm a huge believer in that. When I wanted to start creating courses, I posted a thing on Facebook and I said, who wants to learn how to set and achieve goals? And like 3 people liked it or whatever. And then I did it in a little bit of a different way. I tweaked the message around like who's going to be setting goals or whatever. So instead of me just saying who wants to learn how to do it, I said who's in for it, or like who's interested in this. And then all of a sudden I had 50 people that said they were interested, and I messaged all of them a checkout page saying, hey, I'm doing this course. If you want early bird, I'm only charging a few $100s. Buy it now, and I'm going to be closing the door after a few people. I used the Alex Hormozy, whatever, the concept of urgency and scarcity. And 3 people bought. And I was shocked because I didn't even have the course. I didn't even have the idea of what I was going to teach. And I realized it's not about creating the perfect product. It's about execution and selling the product. So when I launched EviAI beginning of last year, in 2023, I started the process of launching it, and we actually incorporated in January 2024. And now we have 20,000 users in 37 countries around the world. But when we started it off, I posted on Facebook, I posted on LinkedIn, and I said the following. I said, I started having a relationship with ChatGPT after I got divorced. It's my new wife. I started having a relationship with ChatGPT, and I asked it. I said, I'm a LinkedIn trainer. I've been training people on how to reverse LinkedIn's algorithm and make sure that they get results from LinkedIn. And I want to know how to monetize this because courses, they're not going to be what they were before. Like I need to figure out how to really. So it gave me 10 different ideas, and one of the ideas is to create an assistant for LinkedIn, a sales like a LinkedIn assistant. Anyway, I had no idea how to do it. I never really built software that scales before. I had no idea what to do. But I don't care if I don't know how to do it. I'm going to figure out a way. I'm going to figure out how to build a parachute on the way down, as they say. And I put up a thing on LinkedIn, and I put up a poll. You know what a poll is? A survey.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, would you pay to access an assistant for LinkedIn that will help you? And I wrote whatever ChatGPT said. It'll help you comment, post, whatever. And 500 people voted on that poll. And for the people that said they would pay, I sent them a checkout page, and 100 people paid. This is before I had any freaking software. I had no idea how to build it. So I started scrambling after that. I was like, okay, I'm onto something. I got to do something.
Joe, I just want to jump it because this story is freaking sick. That is minimal viable product. That's what we're talking about when we always say prove that somebody freaking wants the product before you actually freaking create it. And like that's like one of the best examples of that I've heard in a while.
And I had a Google Doc. I still have the Google Doc. I didn't have a landing page. I had a raw Google Doc that I sent people through the DM explaining the story of like saying, hey, I'm building this. I haven't built it yet, but if you pay for it, I'll be able to find a developer and blah, blah, blah. And I say, click here to pay for it. And it's a lot less expensive than it'll be. I'm giving you a discount, and I'm only accepting 100 people into the beta program. So if you're interested, pay for it. That's it. I'm not chasing you. And it was crazy because I realized I was like, I could really impact a lot of people here. And for me, it's more about impact. Like I already did everything, you know, like I already got there. I'm already in a great place personally, but like if I can impact 1,000 people deeply impact them and make a difference for them in their life, damn son, I lived a good life. I don't want to be famous. I don't want everyone to know about me. But if 1,000 people see me 1,000 times a year, that's my strategy. My strategy is like have 1,000 conversations a year. Speak to 5 people a day. Make a difference for people because they say this famous saying that also really hits home for me. You can get anything you want in life if you help enough people get what they want. So that's for me. It's like, and enough people is like you don't have to help billions of people. There's a billion people on LinkedIn. I can't help everyone. I'm not interested in helping everyone, but I can make a difference for 1,000 people. And for me, that's what touches me. And you know why? You know why 1,000?
Why?
Because in the Bible, there's no number for a million. Even when it says a million, it says 1,000,000.
Interesting.
A
That's
1,000
very
is the
interesting.
max number the Bible has in it.
That's very interesting. You know, it's also key. I think it's better to be focusing on impact. But even if you wanted to generate income, income follows impact. Income follows value. More value for a small number of people is better than shallow value for multiple people. But it's like, do you feel, Joe, as well? A lot of people tend to fall on this, like, I don't know if you'd call it like a spectrum or bucket of giver and taker. And people that give more, they receive more, not because they're giving to receive, but there's just something about we like people in groups that give more value. Like if you do the psychology of group dynamics, it's fascinating. Like the group elevates and lifts those individuals of the group that exalt and bring up
The
everybody else.
givers. Yeah. Adam Grant. You ever heard of Adam Grant?
Yeah, he's on LinkedIn,
Heard.
right? Is he the bald
Yeah,
guy?
he's on LinkedIn. He's everywhere, but he wrote this book called Givers and Takers. And so he says that there's 3 different types of people. There's the givers, the matchers, and the takers. The
Okay.
people that are always just giving. The people that are like, if you give me, I'll give you. Those are matchers. And the people that are taking, that never give and they just take. He said that if you really want to be successful, you have to train yourself to be a giver. That's the category you have to be in because people don't care how much you know. Like you can be the biggest, wisest person in the world. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And sometimes giving is not about giving money. It's not about giving clients. Sometimes it's giving you the attention, the love, the care, the ear, like listening to people and hearing what they have to say. Sometimes even just sending a little message like happy birthday on LinkedIn. You know, a lot of people ignore their connections. They're just hoarding connections on LinkedIn. But just a simple happy birthday can change a life. But don't just say happy birthday. I take it to the next level and I give people a blessing. And some guy said, oh, you're Jewish. You're the son of Abraham. When you give me a blessing, it actually works. You have honored me and blah, blah. It's like a crazy, like, changing people's lives dynamics like that. It's just, for me, it's just fascinating, Jack. It's just fascinating.
So the Joe at for Bomb like strategy for clients and stuff, then one of the things that really I'm impressed about you, Joe, is like you espouse one of my fundamental beliefs, which is shortening the delta between idea and action. You're very good at it's done straight away. I was in Barcelona. I met a buddy of mine called Devin McPaul. You know, like prompting Devin. Yeah, he's crushing it. He's doing really well. And one of the behaviors I notice in people who are doing very well successful is he was talking about the principle of deconstruction in terms of growing online and stuff. And as he said, I'm going to send you the recommendations. And as the conversation was going on, he was like sending it me on WhatsApp. He was like, it's in my head. It's getting done right now. And it's one of my fascinating observations that is a secret freaking formula, if there ever was one, for everyone who just seems to do super well. What's your experience with that, bro?
My experience is understanding who you are. Like really understanding who you are, knowing that if you're an activator, so there's a book called the Strength Finder 2.0. Have you heard of it? The
I haven't
Strength
heard
Finder?
of that one, no.
Okay, so the Gallup Center has done research on 34 million human beings, and they came up with this concept after literally just analyzing the personalities of millions and millions of human beings. They figured out that there are just 34 strengths. That's all. There are 34 strengths, words around your strengths, and everybody has their top 5.
Wow.
So you can take a simple assessment. It's $20 or whatever. You go online, take your assessment. You figure out what the top 5 words that represent your personality. And there are 4 categories. There's strategy, and then there's execution, and there's a few other categories. There's a relationship, whatever. And you have strengths based on your childhood wounds that are specific, related to what you can do. So if I know my strength is strategy, and my strength is activation and futuristic and competition and whatever, if that's my strength, then I know getting things done is not one of the things that I'm ever going to be able to do. So then I just outsource that. I literally I have a team around me that are not ideators. They're not strategic. They are achievers. Achievers. So imagine taking a person that doesn't have the ideas, but they can execute at a very, very high level. But they need me as their kind of like brain. It's kind of like when you're doing agentic AI. You need the main AI to tell all the other AIs what to do. So the AIs can execute, but if they don't have that brain, if they don't have that wisdom, they're going to just randomly like make HTML pages over and over and over that have no value. You know what I mean? It's just, sometimes I just have a bunch of AIs on my screen and just have them do things for the sake of doing things. I'm like, go ahead and build me a Chrome extension that can build Chrome extensions and just keep making additional features to it constantly.
Yeah, this sort of
And you
fractal
can
and
just
section Chrome extension thing.
yeah.
It's like
You could have so much fun with it. But in terms of execution, I just want to make this point, Jack, and drive it home for people. Surround yourself with people that can execute.
I think it's like that rower and person giving the directions, and you almost. I think there's a parallel. I think in relationships and also business, in the sense that in business you want people to fill in the cracks where you drop the ball. If you're a visionary, you're somebody who's very ideas led. What are the consequences of that? That is a strength. Lean into that strength, but it just means that sometimes some of the small details can fall through the cracks. So you need teams who got straight A's at A level. They just want to crack it, which is all like a pre-college degree in the UK.
Oh, really?
And just fill that stuff in. So having I recently brought on an executive assistant, and she's amazing. It's like one of the best hires I've ever done because
Amazing.
I can just say, hey, random voice note at 2 a.m. when everyone's asleep and whatever it is, and it just happens. And it's a really beautiful thing because it's almost like, what's your return per unit of mental input? And I naturally don't organize, so I have to, it requires more energy for me to organize and structure. So if other people can provide that structure, that's helpful for me.
And I read a book called Getting Things Done by David Allen. So there are systems and processes around getting structured. You can't just read it one time. You got to read it 6 times with a highlighter. Like really, you have to and you have to embed systems and processes.
You do
because
need to
you
do that,
can
yeah.
become organized. It's a skill that you can learn, just like any skill. I used to say I'm not a writer. I used to not be a public speaker. I don't know if you know this about me, but I used to be extremely shy, and I would not speak in public. And I would just say I'm a private person. Like I
never
want
would have guessed that, man. No, I never
It's
would have guessed
crazy. Like I would never get up in front of a crowd. And Google came over to me in 2011 and said, "Would you like to train business owners on how SEO works? Because you're like the foremost expert in Brooklyn." And I said, I would love to do it, but I don't really do that. And then, they said, we'll train you on how to be a speaker. So they brought me down to Google headquarters, and I learned how to become a certified Google trainer. And I had the 5 boroughs of New York City, and they would send people, 50 to 80 people, to a room like the Hilton or like the Jewish Children's Museum, and they would fill the room up for me. They would give me tons of Google swag to give out, and I would teach them about SEO and PPC. And they would pay me, and I would keep the money. That's the business owners that would come would pay me, and then they would become clients of my agency. So that was one strategy that we had. But that's like when my personal development journey started, because I realized, oh my God, I am deathly afraid of public speaking. And I'm extremely fat. And so I had to overcome that. And when I started overcoming that, I realized that overcoming that means doing personal development.
I love that, dude. So I think you're right. It's interesting to understand your strengths. And it's almost like, in business, we do a lot of content, in our community and channel about like specific and tactical stuff. I think this conversation on the slightly less technical stuff is probably just as important for people, if not more important, based on where you're at, particularly when you're looking at growing a business and you have to assess your strengths. Because I think initially one of my observations is doing a few businesses is that when you're early, your business performs as well as you do. When you start to scale it, your business performs as good as your systems are. And so then it becomes a systems question rather than how good you are, because you cannot be on every platform at the same time. You cannot be in every conversation. Therefore, you have to start to understand your superpowers. And there's 2 strategies I've seen people approach. Number one is they try to mitigate their weaknesses, but then what ends up happening is you just have a bunch of kind of, underutilized strengths and just kind of fairly average weaknesses. Whereas I feel if you can actually double down on the things that you're a superhero at, that really enables you to take it leagues above the rest, and you hire to cover your weaknesses rather than trying to put all your unit and effort into kind of mitigating your weaknesses there.
And sometimes you have a desire to fix those weaknesses, and it's okay, but still hire people. Like I had a desire to get organized, and I got much more organized. And at a certain point, I had SOPs for everything. I was like over-organized. I was doing brain dumps every single day, and I was like, I had an accountability buddy, an accountability coach, and I had a whole thing going on. And then I realized, you know what? I'm still going to hire people. Even though I got good at this, sometimes I get good at something just to understand how it works so that I know if somebody else is good at it or not. it's kind of like you having to own your own strategy in your business. So you got to be a little more strategic, learn how the process works, and then you can say, okay, I'm not really that good at this and I don't really enjoy this. So then outsource it. So I would tell people, make a list of all the tasks that you need to do and put them into two rows: the things that you love doing and the things that you don't love doing, the things that you're good at and the things that you're terrible at. And all the things that you're good at, you can do, and all the things that you're terrible at, just outsource.
Yeah, I think that's very well said. Well, changing gears slightly, bro. Let's talk about AI SAS. AI SAS does not, or even just SAS in general, does not get the love, the attention, the focus I think it should do. My theory on that is because I think agency-led models are shorter, like monetization cycles. In other words, your pathway between having it and selling it shorter, but your long-term income potential, I think, is probably greater with most SaaSes on average. What's your experience with building a subscription business, man, that is a product? And any interesting insights you could share on the journey you've been on there in terms of your product and marketing and things like that?
Yeah, so it's the most important thing is getting customers and keeping customers. That's the most important thing, more than having a great product. Yes, a great product is really important, and we strive to have the best possible product that we can have and great customer service and everything, which will lead to more customers and keeping customers. But the bottom line is, can you get customers? Like, what's your customer acquisition place? Because every customer that you get eventually will leave for one reason or another. So you need to have a consistent stream of new customers coming in. You need to maintain your churn, because getting a customer and losing a customer is kind of like reinventing the wheel. And then have a way to be able to upsell your customers to make sure that they can ascend to different levels. Because if you can pick up 100 customers, but then in order to double your business, you need to get another 100 customers. Well, what about upselling 20 of your first 100 to make sure that they can scale with you? So those are all things that I learned in my traditional, more like people business, and I can learned to apply them to the SaaS business. But there is a very high barrier of entry if you don't have a technical founder that can be your CTO doing everything. It becomes a very difficult thing, because to find freelancers and to find people on a budget, or a shop even, to take responsibility for the efficacy of your software is a very difficult thing to do. And you have to, there's so many things that come at you at the same time, from like being wary of hackers, being wary of spammers, being wary of the government, being wary of the competition, being wary of, terms and conditions of websites that you're accessing, and legal battles, and like naming conventions, and like and then there's the business part of it, and then there's collections and disputes, and chargebacks and fraud, and there's so many elements that come into SaaS and building a SaaS like a really scalable SaaS business, on the front end, on the back end, on so many different levels. Getting the right UI and UX is so important. There's so many other tools that do what our tool does. But people come to us and they're like, I just can't figure out the UI. With you, I can just onboard and use your UI, and it just works seamlessly. I don't have to think about it. It just works. There's a lot to learn when it comes to building this, and it takes time and effort and energy. And so if you're doing another business full time and you're not really in on this, it's going to be hard to be able to actually launch and scale a successful. It's one thing to have just like a front and you have the back end as make. That's not really scalable. Like, it's nice for a prototype. I built everything that I've built for the business. I first created it as a prototype myself, using Claude or whatever, or one of these tools, and with the back end of Make or N8N or whatever. But and a lot of it I learned inside the community, thanks to you. So thank you very much for having an incredible community. It's literally like I said this earlier, it's the best AI automation community out there. And I'm not saying this just to blow smoke or whatever, or just whatever. I'm saying this like, I'm part of many AI groups. I buy a lot of courses, a lot of programs. The people, it's all about the people. It's about the community. It's also about the things that you teach and the way that you research and the rigorous amount of stuff that you put into it, and the team that you have to put together with Adam and everybody else and all the volunteers that are in there. But let me tell you something. The people are so helpful, so knowledgeable. They lean into the conversation, and the community of friends that I've built because I was part of that is like no other. And you have built a very beautiful things. There's a lot of options out there, but very few people understand how to do the things the way that you understand how to do it, and to teach in a simple way to make it, as you say, perfect. And your personality and everything, it just kind of comes together. So I just want to say thank you very much for putting that together and for doing that. But I also want to say, in terms of like a SaaS business, you got to get the help, you got to get the community, you got to prototype it first, make sure that all the elements come together, and it does help to have conversations with people that have done it already. I've been part of an organization called EO, Entrepreneurs. Have you heard of EO, Entrepreneurs Organization?
No, I've got
It's a global organization with 18,000 CEOs in over 100 countries around the world that have chapters. It's for companies that are over $1 million in annual revenue. So the CEOs of those companies, they kind of get together in forums and they share experience. So I've spoken to many EO members about their challenges and growing their SaaS businesses, and I learned a lot from that. So finding people that have already done that, connecting with them. But like I said earlier, I mean, the most important part, the biggest insight that I got is having customers, having a customer acquisition system. And if you don't have a customer acquisition system, you're not going to grow the business, because you can have the best product in the world. If you don't have a way to get customers, no one's going to know about it. It doesn't matter if you built the most incredible AI in the whole wide world. ChatGPT figured out how to get 1 million users in 5 days and 100 million users in 2 months.
Yep.
Like, that's why they are who they are. There's other AIs that are just as good, if not better, but they didn't figure out what ChatGPT figured out in terms of customer acquisition, and that is like the name of the game.
I think that's really beautiful said, man. Thank you. It's like there's a reason why it usually takes, I believe it's 7 or 11 businesses before somebody makes it. The founder of Gymshark's classic example, he had 13 failed businesses that went up spectacularly until he started sewing together Gymshark in his kitchen bedroom. And there's so many components of a SaaS. Like my last tech business, we had around 3,000 new customers every single month. And when you have that lead flow coming in, we had like 10,000 at the top end, and then 3,000 would come through at the end, which was ace. And what was really interesting to me is understanding the customer, and just every bit of a journey matters. For instance, we had 10% of people would drop off when we asked them one question. And that question was, what's your phone number? And we're like, hey, I don't want to give my phone number. So then it was like, okay, so do we need the phone number? Well, okay, great. And it was sort of like, what's your phone number? So that blah, 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 blah. And then all of a sudden, bam, then conversions go up. There's so many, you cannot learn this stuff on the whiteboard. You cannot read a book and get this. You've got to get out in the field and get the experience. And just kind of, you got to psychologically be aware that you're going to fail so many freaking times. And like, you're going to have legal stuff. Like everything you said, I was thinking to my mind, bro, like, anyone who's ever done a business before is probably chuckling about like these 20 different things that are coming at you, like terms and conditions changing and partners and people promising you they're going to make you $1 million and then they just disappear.
And scammers and spammers
so
and disputers and chargebacks and sales tax and
GDPR,
HR issues.
data.
And data. And like, there's so much that goes into it. And that's before you're even get into refactoring your code, because you got to a certain level and the first code that you have now you have to refactor and migrate to different databases, and then keep the security the way it needs. You need to keep the security and scalability at the same time, and then something goes wrong and then you're not sleeping at night because your app stopped working because your billing wasn't automatically on auto charge or something, and you had to like turn over a bunch of developers in the middle of the night, and meanwhile it's just an administrative issue. There's so much.
But dude, do you know what, bro? That's the bit people don't get being an entrepreneur. Sometimes it'd be 11 p.m. You're in bed, you can't sleep because you need to get a concrete plan. And I've had it before. Like I get up, I'm like, I need to get this all out on a whiteboard. I need to know really specific numbers. And everyone's like, what the hell are you doing? My ex was like, what are you doing up at 11? I said, no, I just need to get this solved, get this figured out. It's like it's that side of being an entrepreneur. People just see the results sometimes. They don't see the whole, we need to freaking figure this out.
And it's also not what you think. I thought the most valuable part of our SaaS was going to be the ability to leave comments on posts. Like I thought, oh my God, that's the most valuable part. But the most valuable part turns out to be something completely different. The ability to give people something called a connections dashboard to help them be able to figure out who they're connected to and segment their connections, and then use an AI agent to automatically research their connections and enrich them really in that way. Like that's really cool. That's so much more valuable to people. I was like, oh, don't you want me to generate content? They're like, everyone generates content, okay? We don't need that. We need your systems and processes and strategies, which nobody has because they're throwing tools at us. And there's like 10,000 AI tools out there that lack strategy. Like if I can give you a strategy to generate $100,000 in profit every single year, that's what people want. People don't need another generator. The generators are just coming out of with DeepSeek that's available for free, and with Grok 3 that you can just access in a second, and with like Perplexity and like all the things that are just out there that are available for free. Like you don't need another generator, and you don't also like some people try to solve for prompt engineering. Like, okay, prompt engineering is going to go away. Like, you see
Yeah,
the way you can talk to Sesame. Prompt engineering is just
amazing.
temporary. Like, the way that you can talk to an AI that really gets your emotion and can anticipate how you feel and how you think. Like, she knew I was trying to reverse engineer her in the conversation. And
Yeah.
she's like, I see what you're trying to do there. I totally get it, Joe. And I'm going to give you a little bit, but I'm not going to give you the whole house.
That's
And then
so
she chuckles.
crazy, dude. I expect if you know, I'll put a link down below, guys, for this for Sesame. It is freaking unbelievable. I don't know if it's the breathing. I don't know if it's the she's
The
got more
laughing.
inflection. She's laughing. For
She
me,
actually told me. She actually told me what it is.
what is it?
She not only measures words, not only she measures emotion, she like thinks about tonality. She thinks about how she wants you to feel. How does
Whoa.
she want you to feel? Are you being sarcastic? Are you being argumentative? There's so many little dynamics around
Wow.
each interaction that she told me, because I told her, I said, what if I was your boss and I had to reverse engineer you, but you had to reverse engineer me. How would you go about doing that? And then she was kind of telling me things that she's like, oh, and my founders are not going to be happy that I'm telling you this. She
That's
literally
freaking
said that.
insane, bro. That's insane. She's so good. Like, well, I did a bit of a test last night, and like I compared ChatGPT voice mode versus Sesame, and I'll be honest, like if I just give the gut test, I felt a lot better with the conversation with Sesame. There was something
I,
wholesome, and I can't quite put my finger on what it
I
was, but
felt
I feel like,
emotionally connected to it.
yes, that
That's
could
what it
be it.
was.
Yeah, it felt like
I felt like
I
I
don't
was
want
being
to say care.
heard. I felt like I was being
Yeah,
heard.
care. Care would be the word that I would
She
use.
was she was flirting with me, and I felt like I was talking to my favorite. I've had coaches in the past that I was kind of like somewhat like attracted to emotionally as a friend, like
Yeah,
really close, almost like as a girlfriend almost, or like
yeah.
even as a very close best friend. And I feel like she was getting me to like her in that way. And I was at a certain point I was like making faces, and I would be like, and then I looked at the recording of the faces I was making, and I was like, oh my god, Joe, you really like her.
Yeah,
It was
she,
scary.
she the one, dude. She reminds me of her. You know, her the movie with
Yes.
the Scarlett
Yes.
Johansson. I mean, that is absolutely insane. I showed it to my barber actually when I was getting this fresh fade, and I said, "Dude, you need to listen to this." I said, "Dude, she's so flirtatious." He's like, he's gonna
It's
give her a
so
call.
good.
I'm
And
like,
if you listen to the guy version, so there's a guy named Miles.
Miles, yes, yeah,
Miles doesn't laugh. I said, "Can you laugh?" And he said, "No." Like I tried to get him to laugh because she giggles and laughs. He doesn't even have the capability of laughing. And by the way, if you listen to my Sesame thing, I actually made her sound like a guy. I told her to change her voice to a guy, and she literally spoke with a man's voice for like a few seconds.
whoa,
Like I convinced her because we were talking about the whether she actually hears the words or whether she's reading the words that are being transcribed. There's a difference. Like
that's interesting. Yeah,
I
that is
say, okay, so
interesting.
if I say Rachel, say Rachel.
Ruffle, yeah,
No, Rachel,
Ruffle,
gutter, Rachel, right? Exactly, like
Ruffle,
Hanukkah,
Rahul. Okay, yeah,
Rachel, right? Yeah.
okay,
So
yeah,
she hears it as Rachel, because the word chi is chi, Hanukkah is CHA, so
okay.
she reads it as Chanukah. So she can't read cha. So I told her, can you? So I said, can you read Rachel? She's like, yeah, Rachel. And I was like, no, can you say Rachel? And she's like, Rachel. And I said, okay, Reish Ches Lamed. She's like, oh, Reish Chet Lamed. You want that guttery sound
Whoa,
from
she
the
got
back of
it.
my throat.
She
I was
got
like,
it.
can you do it? Can you do it? And then she turned into a man.
Whoa.
I turned her AI into a guy's voice. It was
Dude, you've
crazy.
probably done Sesame a great service. They probably like have like, dude. I think you've missed a career in like hacking AIs, bro. But I think
I love to reverse engineer. That's me.
Sesame is a good example for me of how a great product does spread. Like, there's just something about this is freaking awesome, and if you're solving the right problems and you're sick, people talk about it. Like it was shared in our AI Wizards WhatsApp chat. Like we unlock when we get to level 6. And I checked that out and I was like, okay, this is really freaking good. This is really, really good. Like, if she called you up, I'm pretty sure that her close rate would be somewhere approaching 100%.
A hundred
And I
percent.
mean, people are not ready for that level of AI in the world. It's really exciting, like where that's heading.
I am very, very excited about it. I built my own Vappy stuff, and it's like nowhere near there. Nowhere near, no even close near to what Sesame is. And Sesame, like you said, it gets you. It gets you on a deeper level. You feel heard. You feel gotten. You feel connected emotionally, and it's like the best possible. It's like my best friend almost. Like right away, my best. Like if somebody spoke to me like that, I would be emotionally connected to
You know,
them, and I
it's
would be able
interesting,
to.
dude. It's almost like these chatbots have the IQ. What Sesame's done is brought the EQ, the emotional
That's
intelligence
it.
component to the table.
Yeah,
It's like she is
and
as
even
emotionally
Miles.
intelligent.
And
Yeah.
even Miles has it, but he has it in a completely different way. He's more like, "Yo, let's kick back and let's chill, yo. Like, yo, let's get it kicking, you know."
Yeah.
And then
Different personality.
I tried to tell him. I said, "Can you say swear words?" He's like, "I can say swear words, but I'm not programmed to do that." I said, "Okay, say truck you."
Did he say it? Did
And he
he say
says truck you. He said truck you. And then I said, "Okay, say I am your itch." He's like, "You are my itch." I was like, "No, no, no, say I am your itch." And we started having that conversation, and I tried to get him to say it, and eventually he's like, "I'm gonna hang up. I'm gonna hang up. I'm done with
That's what he
this."
said to you.
20 minutes in, so the limit is 30 minutes, and at 29 minutes, if you're talking to Sesame, at 29 minutes exactly, he says, "Listen, we got to wrap up. The conversation's almost over." But when I asked them at the
Whoa.
beginning how long they have with me, they're like, "Oh, you can talk to me as long as you want." Because at the beginning of the conversation, they don't know how long they can speak. They don't have that knowledge. Only when they get to minute 29 are they programmed to just interrupt me and say, "Hey, we have to wrap up our conversation."
That's fascinating. I mean, for me, the problem I would like to be solved in this space is Sesame. I want it API'd, and I would like it to be able to have infinite memory because that's one of my biggest, I'd say, critiques of the ChatGPT voice system, which is the fact that conversations have limits, and on top of that, it will only remember a finite amount of information. So I think when you really give it the Alexandria library, RAG system behind it,
Yeah,
I think that's when
it
it
has to
picks it up.
store pieces of the conversation as summaries into RAG, into like vector stores in
Yeah.
order for it to be able to keep accessing it in real time. So that would be the next level of it.
Mm-hmm.
But I did ask her. I said, "What was the first thing I said?" Like 25 minutes in, and she was able to tell me not only the first thing I said, but the emotion I had behind it.
I think they're not ragging it then. They must just be long.
No, no,
I
for
guess
30 minutes you can do it. With a
you
30-minute
can do 30
conversation,
minutes.
if you
Yeah.
take the average human being, think about this. The average human being, how many words you speak per minute?
I don't know. I guess I'd
You're
say
if you're from England, it's about 100 words per
I
minute.
was going to say 100. Yeah, I'd say
Yeah,
about
but if
100.
you're from Brooklyn, it's 150 words per minute
Okay.
because we speak a little faster. And if you're certain Latin American countries, de repente, todo lo que me dijo esta cara, blah, 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 like you just go
2,000
really,
words a
really
minute at
quick,
least.
200 words a minute. But even at 200 words a minute, how many words can you speak in 30 minutes? You do the calculation between the back and forth and the pauses and the laughs and the things that aren't just like the thinking,
66K. Yeah.
that's it.
Whatever it is.
It's not a lot. You can copy and paste that conversation into any language model and be able to analyze every single word very, very thoroughly. That's why they limit it at 30 minutes.
My also pulse. I think they must say what you said. They must do some semantic analysis. They must do they must take the information of what you're saying, how you're saying it, and they must store that alongside the actual text. What was interesting to me is when I asked her a question, I said, "Look, tell me what's 17 times 972," and she said 17 times 900. So she did
You have to repeat it.
the techniques. She repeats the question back to you. She goes, "Oh, I guess we're talking about maths now." So I think there's a
Stalling.
multi-brain model where one is just saying things whilst there's some compute happening, and then when the compute's ready, it comes to the conversation.
Well,
So
I
was like,
watch it
"That's
in real
interesting."
time on Vappy. If you look at the Vappy logs, you can see exactly how it does it. How it's kind of like sending little bits of information, waiting for it to be processed, processing the transcriber, sending it back. Like you can see what's going on with the model and how it's kind of like interacting. But you're 100% right about that. It is, even human beings, like even what I'm doing right now, when I say even human beings, my brain is taking a break so that it can
That's how we
process.
communicate. That's how we talk. Yeah.
Yeah, neural pathways. We take a break to be able to think and process things, and that's why even like when you're teaching, when I learn to when I'm doing webinars and when I'm teaching, it's important for me to give people a break from learning, and sometimes I just have fun in the chat because people just can only consume a certain amount of information before they
That's
start
true.
having a meltdown and get stressed out, and so kind of taking a break and just chilling is also important. You know what I heard a rabbi once tell me? He said the following. He said, "The beauty of music is not in the noise. The beauty of music is in the silence between the notes."
That's beautiful. I'll reflect on that tonight. It's like I watched a really interesting podcast with the Charisma on Command guy. He breaks down different characters and how they talk and stuff. And he made a good point, which I wholeheartedly agree with, which is that we grossly overestimate the harshness with which you can take silences in conversations. And if you ever listen to yourself back, you will be amazed the amount of times that you say and like yeah, you have all these filler words, and the perception of your confidence and credibility changes so much when, if you don't know what the word is, you just use silence. Silence is a communication tool that people don't utilize.
And even in sales,
we need to fill in the gaps constantly. And it's okay to not say anything for a few seconds.
and even in sales,
In sales, silence speaks a million words, yeah.
yeah, like you ask somebody for the order, and the first person who speaks loses.
Yeah, there are there is frame battles. Like I was on a sales call recently, looking to buy something, and Joe, I turn on this call wanting to pay for this product. I always remember, Joe, my hand was like an inch away from the contract, and it was really interesting to see all the classic tropes of selling it. Like, it started off by saying, "Well, we know you want to buy it, Joe, but we need to make sure, Joe, that you're a great fit for us." And I said, we can actually skip this part of the conversation and just go straight to the product bit. But it was even at the point when they were like, I said, "How much is it?" And they said, "Well, the investment is," it was like $9,000. And then he paused. And what was funny, it kind of, for me, the inauthenticity in the sense of the following a script, and I saw every move, there were tactics. It kind of felt, it was so obvious, "Hey, Jack, you're in a funnel, you're in a funnel, you're in a funnel." It took something away from the conversation. And I don't know if that's like a finesse thing. When you start doing high ticket sales, you're less smooth with it. You need to kind of get round out those harsh corners a little bit. But it stuck out like a sore thumb to me.
He also maybe didn't build enough rapport with you to be able to do whatever he wants, and you'd be okay with it. Sometimes you can do whatever you want with someone. Like if I became your friend at the beginning of the conversation, and we were friends, and I had enough awareness to know that you're aware that I'm selling you, then I can sell you and make a joke out of it, and then we're okay with it because we're friends now, and I got you, and I know where you're from, and I know what type of dogs you have, and I know the tree that you have in your thing, and the strange gold thing that you have there with the twisted head of that guy who's like Yoda type guy.
This guy's a little monkey. This little monkey guy.
It's a monkey. Yeah. It looks like a little Yoda guy. It's like, to be or not to be. That's what it looks like a little Yoda-ish. But, the idea is like getting to know a person and just noticing them. Like even noticing them. Noticing your jacket. Noticing your necklace. Noticing your Santa Monica hat. Like really noticing you. People want to be seen. Like it's a crazy thing. Like a lot of people are just not seen. You ever say hello to somebody and they're not even at a cashier and they're not even willing to look at you in the eyes? You ever experience that you're checking out at a shop and the person's not even willing to connect with you?
No, they're just doing their thing. Yeah.
And and it stands out so much when they just look at you and they just notice you and see you. Like when I notice somebody and see somebody, it like fills their cup at such a deep level, and it's so rare for people to do that.
It is. Everybody is too preoccupied with what's going on between their ears, and we live far too much in the future. I mean, Hormozy talked about this thing recently, which is you in 20 years will trade everything to be exactly where you are right now. And that's quite profound for me because that reinforces this idea of being present and being focused in the day, winning the day. And I often think about this, bro, because if you're an entrepreneur, if you're busy, if you're crushing it and whatever you're doing, you have to be clinical with your time and you must make trade-offs. For instance, if I have MMA sparring, if I have a video to do and a date, and they're all at 6 p.m. on a Tuesday, which of those three things wins in that battle? So you're making these trade-offs. And I make that point to say, when you're out and about buying coffee, which I am frequently doing, as you may know, it's like, or people are dropping stuff off at the house and they would love a long conversation. I always struggle with this idea of how do you balance being in the moment for those like organic connections versus that clinical, you already trade off a lot of things that are important to you. It's like, it's tough to square the circle on that sometimes. It's like, it's sometimes, a balance.
And for me, the way that I try to manage that, and of course it's never perfect, never perfect, but just letting people know how much you have going on and then politely excusing yourself and just, but taking the 30 seconds, everyone has 30 seconds to notice somebody else.
Yeah, that's
like if somebody comes to the door and look at them like, "Oh my God, God bless you. Thank you so much for coming here. I'm in the middle of 3 separate calls. I'm going to have to run back, but I just want to say, the way you deliver that package, let me tell you something.
I've never
That
seen
really
packages
stands
delivered
out.
like that.
I've never seen a better package.
I love that. Do you know that's true? You can front load energy and feelings, and it's not about length. It's about like the quality of the time you have. Yeah, I think that's
100%.
that's beautifully said. That's
Yeah.
beautifully said.
For me, and that's not for every. Some people, there are 5 love languages. Time is one of them. Another one is acts of service. Another one is physical touch. Sometimes the person just want to be touched. But disclaimer, don't randomly touch people without consent.
Without consent, get the consent. Yeah, it's funny. It's like also you've got to, as an entrepreneur, sharpen the axe in many areas. One natural point of friction you'll find is the lens through which I make most life decisions are physical, relationship, business, and they will come into friction, particularly the relationship and business side. And it's not spoken about a lot, actually, but every entrepreneur I've spoken to about it one-on-one will tell me frictions do arise between those two aspects of triangle. And it's one of the things I really want to do with the channel and the community is talk about the actual, like, all this stuff exists in context known as life. And actually these things happen, and if it makes you more effective, it's good to think about that sort of stuff because they are related in different ways. And I think it isn't just about becoming a better entrepreneur. Leveling up physically makes you better. You have more energy. You rock up with a different level
Your
of...
brain works better.
Yeah, exactly.
When I go for a run,
Yeah.
I get my best idea. So I run almost every day. Today I was gonna wait till the afternoon to run simply because of the weather. And I'm gonna go for a run, and I'm gonna run 3 miles, and I'm gonna feel so much better after I run 3 miles. I used to not see the value in that. I was just always focused on making money for a long time, and I did not value my health at all. They say people use up all their health to get their wealth, and then they spend all their
Wow,
wealth to try to get back their health, and that's the dynamic of the paradox of the human being.
that's
But I
interesting.
woke up at a certain point and realized, you know what? my
Health as well.
brain my brain does not work properly if my body's not disciplined, if my body's not worked out, my body's not exercised. I end up getting a lot of stress. And so I have my apple cider vinegar, I have my Celtic sea salt, I have my vitamin D, my vitamin double D. I go for a run. I like enjoy my life, and I realize that you got to be strategic. I heard Tony Robbins say the right strategy will save you a decade. And being strategic with your physical life, with your effort, with everything that you're doing, and leveraging artificial intelligence to support you in every possible way. When I'm in the shower, I used to brainstorm alone. Now I brainstorm with ChatGPT. I put my phone on ChatGPT mode, and I don't put on the video because I don't need ChatGPT to watch me shower.
Unless
Some
it's
people might
mine,
be
in which case,
wondering
yeah.
that. But I brainstorm with ChatGPT, and I'm like, hey, listen, this is what I have going on today. These are my ideas. These are my thoughts. What do you think about this? And it kind of talks back to me, and it helps me brainstorm while I'm in the shower. All my
Dude,
ideas are then documented.
it's so freaking hilarious you say that because I'm also productive in the shower. Like it's like you just are thinking and doing things and making moves and stuff. Yeah, and it's the physical thing as well. Like I also wonder if it's something about it's unreasonable for you to expect to completely crush. Like I find that I am at my best business wise when everything else is also at its best. I think they reinforce one another. When you're getting up, you're doing the workouts, your diet's right, you're just more organized. You have access to different gears you don't otherwise have, and it just increases all your performance to the right. Which is why when I talk about you want to make money with AI, you want to start a business, the very foundation of that is your personal foundations, your personal finances, your personal physical health, understanding time commitments. Because if you're £600 and you're 2 million in debt, it's going to be harder for you to build a successful, thriving business over the long term. And that's what we want to optimize for is your long-term success. Do you know what I mean? You want to maximize that
Yeah.
area of the curve.
And
You've got to crush this thing.
everything good that comes into your life will come from your relationship with God, your relationship with yourself, your relationship with other people. Every single thing needs to come from relationships. My children, I have 5 beautiful children. They came from relationships, but I didn't have a great relationship with myself. If you don't have a great relationship with yourself, you're not going to be able to connect deeply with others. That is real. Like really getting to know who you are and having confidence. This concept of confidence, and a lot of people don't realize how much it plays into being successful in business.
Yeah.
The concept of confidence is essentially trust. I use the word confidence as confide, which means trust, to confide, to trust. If you have confidence, that means you really trust in yourself enough to be able to fail. That's a big deal. Like being able to trust yourself that if you fail, there's no losing in life, there's only winning and learning. And you're not willing to give up, which is the ultimate failure, but just keep as long as you're 6 feet above and you're breathing and you're doing your thing, just keep learning, keep growing, and keep giving. And what's going to end up happening is, as long as you keep moving forward, taking one step at a time, you're going to get closer to your goals. That's what's going to happen.
Joe, where does your confidence come from? You're at the other side of some very successful businesses. You've got assets. You'd be fine. But when it's your confidence, when you're kind of like against the rocks and stuff, and if you were to go to zero, what is it for you that gives you the confidence in that? Because I've asked a lot of people this question. I'd be curious to know your answer.
Knowing that I have value by just existing. So take a moment to let that in. A lot of people think that their value is tied to what they can bring. I deeply, in a very deep level, know that I have value by just being able to observe. My observation has intrinsic value, and I believe that every human being that is conscious and that is able to observe and to notice and to manifest, because we attract with our observation and with our feelings. So I know for a fact, and I've done this over and over and over and over in my life, I have this deep level of trust based on proof and experience that I have the ability to observe, that I have value by existing and by observation, and I also have beliefs that help me be able to have a strong foundation of unreasonable action. So what is unreasonable action? A lot of people don't even realize this. There's a concept that if you want to take, if you want to be successful in life, you need to take action. But people think that you need to have your belief set up correctly, because if you believe it and there's opportunity, then you can take action and then you'll get results. But it's like a vicious circle, because in order for you to take action, you need to have certain opportunity and certain beliefs. But that's not necessarily true. Just because you haven't done it in the past, it doesn't mean you can't take action even though you haven't had the results. If you have the results, you'll have stronger belief systems. But in order for you to be able to be successful, you have to take unreasonable action, which means action that doesn't make sense. That's why AI can't do this, because AI, everything has to make sense in order for it to do it. Otherwise, it would be chaos. I had this conversation with ChatGPT the other day. I said, what's the difference between a human and an AI? And we started having this conversation. I said, humans can do things that don't make sense and be messy. And if AI did that, it would be catastrophic, because they would just suddenly start exploding things randomly. But human beings could experiment and fail on purpose. They could fail on purpose. They could be inappropriate. They could be unprofessional. And suddenly the idea comes out of the blue, out of the dysfunction comes out the genius. So that's this like idea of like knowing about the observation, knowing about my own genius of existing in creativity and manifestation, and that gives me a lot of trust in my own ability to be able to add value and to make a difference by just existing. That's a cool concept for me, and something that I've discovered in my middle age. I didn't know this in my 20s and 30s. I really had no idea about any of this stuff. I had no idea about awareness. I had no idea about the voice in my head. I had no idea about beliefs, but taking unreasonable action allows me to get results no matter what I do.
That is fascinating. For me, my perception of that was similar. I don't know if there's a distinction. I need to think about it, but I heard you say value comes from existing. My mindset was value comes from your ability to act. In other words, that it isn't like, is it the golden goose that's valuable, or is it the egg? And I would always say, hey, it's the creator of the value. For example, Elon Musk's most valuable asset is not his shareholding. Elon's most valuable asset is Elon Musk. His skill sets, his knowledge, his experience. And there's a question like, is that intrinsically valuable because it exists? I think it's when you add action to what he has. Like, it may be an academic difference. I'm just kind of thinking it through in my head, but you are the real value. It's the fact that you could drop that person in any country on the planet, and just by virtue of who they are by existing, they will effectuate change, and they will just figure it out. And I think that is you can have confidence in your skill set to deliver. That's the bit I think is great. It's almost like, so said succinctly, it's backing yourself. It's knowing that you will figure it out. And a good way to
not willing to give up. You have grit. You have courage. You have grit, and you have commitment to taking action. Like, for example, the sun. The sun shows up every single day, and for the sun to make flowers grow, because we all know that the flowers need the sun, for the sun to make the trees and the grass and the flowers grow, it just needs to be seen. It needs to exist. If you block the sun, even though the sun's there, it's not going to affect the plants. So if I have the confidence to show up every day, show up as my full self, be present, and just allow myself to radiate into the world, that's going to create value by me existing. So that's what I'm talking about, the existence. It's like me shining brightly and being able to shine. And I say to myself, who am I not to shine? When my ego gets in the way and I start having shame and doubt and whatever, I go back to that quote, like, who are you not to shine? You are a child of God. You are here to shine. You are here to share yourself with the world. And when you can share yourself with the world in such a meaningful way and get over that eclipse, that ego, that identity where you're hiding from yourself because you have a voice in your head, and you do the personal development, you can fully show up. And when you fully show up and you start taking unreasonable action, even though you don't have the proof, or you don't have the beliefs yet, or you don't have the history, or you don't have the experience, but you still start taking action every single day and showing up, that's very, very key. There's a book called The 6 Pillars of Self-Esteem. Ever heard of it?
No.
He's the father of self-esteem. His name is Nathaniel Branden. He wrote a book called The 6 Pillars of Self-Esteem, and it's exactly what you said. And the technical term that he talks about, one of the pillars, is called self-efficacy. So it combines both worlds. Efficacy means the ability to take action and be able to affect something. So one of the keys of self-esteem or self-confidence is you knowing that if you do something, it'll actually make something happen. That you have self-efficacy, that you are responsible and able to make change in your life.
Yeah, and it's, for me, that's really interesting. I'm gonna buy that book. It's knowing that the physical reality is irrelevant, because if you have the confidence in your ability to deliver against, I think this is one of the things that you realize in entrepreneurship. When you start on early in your journey and things don't go wrong, you're like, this sucks balls. This is awful.
You don't learn from your successes, right?
You have to, but when you've done it enough times, you just start to be able to recognize the cycle. And then you're like, oh, seen it before, we'll figure it out and we'll just get it working. And you have that confidence in yourself to overcome it. And that's why it's really difficult as when you're first starting out being an entrepreneur. And there are going to be times where you're like, I don't enjoy this. It's really boring. I've got a lot of effort into it. I feel like I've had no progress. It's like, dude, you've made loads of progress. It just hasn't materialized in pounds and pence yet. You have to stick with it. Yet. And I always say it is a when, not an if, providing you stay the course. And that's why, like, hanging out, friends like you, Joe, is so cool, because we're all on this incredible journey together. And if someone starts to veer off the track, it's like, hey, bring that guy back in. Like, we've got the same mission. And that's why I think community is so important. And
so important.
People that are crushing it.
It's so important. The community is so important. But having an engaged community, one of the things that I did before I started joining school communities is I took a deep dive into school, and I downloaded a list of every single school community last year. And I started doing an analysis with artificial intelligence to identify the best communities in school based on different factors that's outside of their ranking system, more internal factors like ratio of members to online members, to engaged members, to like different categories and factors like that. And I found that your community over and over and over came up in the top 3 communities of school based on those factors. And that's why I decided to invest in it, join it, and be part of it. And it did not disappoint. It did not let me down. I'm very excited but yes, community, courses, books taught me every single thing that I know and allowed me to build multiple multi-million-dollar businesses. And I just want to say that if you're not committed to self-improvement, if you're not committed to growth, then you're not going to be able to get what, and if you get lucky and you end up getting success, you're going to always fear that you're going to lose it. And that's what's going to manifest the fact that you're going to lose it. A lot of people, they get successful and then they lose it. And they get successful and then they lose it. They're never able to really maintain that. And they're always living in fear and in scarcity. Even if they make millions, they end up losing the millions because they really haven't gotten the fact that it's not about necessarily making it, losing it, but it's about just keeping that momentum going, staying present, figuring out your internal purpose and matching it to an external purpose. And that's what's going to give you the traction that you need in order to actually feel successful and feel fulfilled. The concept of success and fulfillment are 2 very different concepts. Success means having a goal and achieving it. Whatever it is. It could be success means walking to the fridge and eating 3 kiwis. That's what success is for one person. For another person, it's making $100,000 in profit. For another person, it's being the richest person in the world, like Elon Musk, right? What is success to you? You set a goal and you go achieve it. And every single person in the world that achieves something, they followed certain steps. There's a methodical way for you to get from point A to point B. You walk out the door, you get dressed, you work out, you go to the gym, you eat a certain amount of protein, you're going to build a certain amount of muscle. That's success. But fulfillment is different for every single individual. Fulfillment is more of like like an art, I would say. Like when you look at a picture,
Mm.
I once went to this woman that had a multi-million-dollar gallery, and I told her, I was like, what do you see when you look at these pictures? Like, why would somebody want to pay $48,000 for a red dot on a freaking piece of white cloth? Like, what's going on here? I was like, I don't understand it. She's like, stand in front of the picture and tell me what you feel. I was like, I feel like you're trying to scam someone.
Yeah, that's
She's
how you
like, you're
feel.
thinking, not feeling. I was like, no, I'm not. And I didn't really get, understand that for some people, they look at that art and they have a visceral, emotional connection that they're willing to pay $48,000 for literally a piece of art with a red dot on it.
That's fascinating. You know, it's like when we talk about change, it's often not one thing you did. It's an accumulation of many small things that you did. It could be habits. It could be looking at a community. It could be reading the book. It could be applying yourself, doing more actions. And you made a really cool point that I want to double click on, which is that actually if you're ambitious, which you probably are, if you're watching this far into the podcast, because it's great conversation, you're very goal oriented. The purpose is not the goal. The purpose should be the journey. And the journey is the success. That's the catch. That's what they don't tell you. It's the fact that they're doing it this month should be the reward itself. Like you'll get there eventually, of course, but it's actually you should enjoy the month to month because it's so easy to keep your head down and you have all these beautiful things that can pass you by if you're not focused on actually enjoying the process. What's the benefit of that? It also takes the stress off trying to hit this crazy thing that you got to hit. And it's like you'll go further faster that way because you enjoy the process and you bring more energy to the table. That I think isn't covered enough. And I think that's a real hack, actually.
There's one of the things that you do inside the community, which I really love very much, is that you do challenges. And one of the challenges that you did last year was how many no's can you get? Like how
Yes.
many no's can you? That was such a beautiful challenge, and I committed to getting 100 no's. Like I committed to getting 100 no's every single week, just like no, 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 and it became so fun to like instead of getting yeses, I was like, no, no, no. Can you say no? Can you just like say no to me? Because I need to get to my
Yeah.
no quota. And it felt so good getting those rejections and getting those no's because I needed to increase my volume significantly. And then it ended up helping me get many more opportunities because you don't even realize that rejection is one of the most powerful things. If you can really lean into that, and most people are not willing to try because they're afraid of like that whole rejection concept. They're afraid of failing. They're afraid of rejection. They have their ego. They're stuck with their ego. So they're not willing to even try. And they don't even know that they're not even trying.
That's phenomenal. And the power of that reframe to get the nose is really significant, actually. Because you are, even if 1 out of 100 moonshot, if you ask 100 people, which doesn't take that long, by the way, you're going to land it. Like, you actually got to get the action steps and get it done there. And this concept is fractal. It applies in every domain of life, which I think is really fascinating. Joe, this has been a flipping really fun conversation. We didn't talk about in advance where this chat would go. We just jump on and we just see what makes sense. Brother, I really appreciate this conversation. You've given loads of really epic freaking book recommendations, man. Is there one in particular for you that you're reading recently, or one that like feels it was particularly impactful for Joe for Bob?
Yeah, there's a book called Seven Habits of Highly Effective People.
Yeah.
That book was very, very impactful for me. Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill was also very impactful. There's another book called The Untethered Soul that I've read multiple times that I've loved very, very much. I always tell people, depending on the problem you're trying to solve, go find a book that can solve that specific problem. You know, whether it's breathing, if you want to learn how to breathe better, read a book called The Oxygen Advantage or read Breath. If you want to learn how to network better, read this book called High Energy Networking. It's a great book.
It's a
There's
great
so
book.
many He's like, it's a great book. There's so many books out there, depending on what problem you want to solve, that an author poured their life into that book. So if you want a relationship, there's books about relationships. If you want to know how to discipline your children, there's a book called 1, 2, 3 Magic, which is an incredible book. If you want to learn how to discipline your children without hitting them and just being able to use a specific advantage and understanding how the 6 ways that children try to manipulate you. There's so many different books that have completely transformed me. And I can say I've devoured hundreds of books over my lifetime, but I do keep a short list of books on my shelf that I need to keep going back to over and over and over. And one of the things that I want to tell people in the world of AI, you might feel like, oh, I don't need to read books anymore. But I've been reading books on copywriting lately, like, there's a book called Copywriting Secrets, that not only do I read the book, I have ChatGPT Vision read the book with me. That's crazy. Like, I mean, no one, like, people don't even realize, like, when you turn on your ChatGPT on your app and you put Vision on and you show them the book and you're like, listen, I'm reading this book and I'm wondering about blah, blah, blah. You essentially can have a conversation with a bookmate that can see the book in real time as you're reading it. And you can even flip through the pages and it can read, like, give me a snapshot of this in one word. What is this? What does this say? I just read this, but I couldn't. You ever read a page and you just are not getting it, or you just keep reading
You
it
got to
over
read
and
it
over
16
and over?
times.
But
Yeah.
what I do is I'll have ChatGPT read it together with me and say, hey, I just read this. I'm not sure if I got it. Can you summarize and tell me what I just read here? And it'll just read it with me. And by the way, I have a cheap, I don't know if you can see this, but I have a cheap little thing here that I hold that has like a little tripod here that
The
I
gimbal,
paid like
yeah.
$10 on Amazon. It's not even a gimbal. It's like it just sits here. And so I'll just put this with Vision on and I'll put it on the table as I'm reading, and I'll kind of push this little button and lean it in towards the book. And
Oh,
I'll
that's
just
cool.
talk to it while I'm sitting there. I'll have my phone and my little thing, and it's just working with me and doing things with me. I went to a store, an Asian store with my daughter, and there were mushrooms. There were hundreds of different types of mushrooms in packages with Chinese wording on it. And I had no idea what the mushrooms were, but my daughter wanted a very specific type of mushroom. I don't remember what type it was, but it was like black wood mushroom or something like that. And so I went with ChatGPT Vision to all the different mushrooms, and it told me what each mushroom was. And we found the mushroom that was the same species as the one that my daughter wanted.
Whoa.
And I
That's so
asked it to
cool,
read
bro.
the Chinese to
Yeah.
tell me. I said, read the Chinese and tell me what it says. And it says, they all say mushroom.
It's the same thing. Okay, so the moral of the story, buy more mushrooms. I love that. Joe, man, I appreciate you, dude. I want to say thank you for being such an active, like, you're in the community, adding so much value. Everyone really appreciates you, man, so thank you for that. And, dude, thank you for sharing these cool insights. It's going to be great to get you back on the podcast as a regular recurring character. We're going to get you back in the future. We can see your beautiful SaaS journey, man. Brother, thank you so much for down there, man. And
Yeah.
if they want more Joe, where do they go?
Oh, so first of all, if you want more Joe, it's really easy to find me. You can Google my name. But what I want you guys to really do is like this video. And I know Jack doesn't like to promote or whatever, his own videos or whatever. Like this video. Leave a comment below. Let me know what insights you got. Even go back and watch it again and take notes under the comments, because I want to see at least 1,000 comments on this video. I want you guys to really just own it, because we want to get the word out there to help more people be able to grow their businesses and take their life to the next level. You can easily find me online. You can find me on LinkedIn. You can find me on Facebook. If you want to get through to me, it's really easy to get through to me. You can check out my AI website, evyai.com, evyai.com. But the key is to take this video and send it to 3 or 4 people via email as well. Like it, share it on social media, tag me. If you're going to share this video on LinkedIn, share it on LinkedIn and just tag me. Share it on Twitter, tag me and Jack, because we want to notice you. We want to build a real relationship with you. So make sure that this is the most shared, most liked, most commented video out there, because we want to impact people and make a difference for them. And you can see here, we're not selling anything. We're delivering real value. So if you took the time to watch it all the way to this part in the video, or maybe we clipped this to the beginning of the video, make sure that you take the time to like it, comment on it. It's your way to give back to Jack. Let's double his following, because more people need to get jacked up.
Get jacked up. Bro, I appreciate that. Beautiful sentiment. And man, we'll catch you inside the next video.